All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're unpacking a seriously terrifying case file from the true horror channel Khooni Monday. We have meticulously reconstructed the events of that night to bring you this explainer, the anatomy of a haunting. We're going to map out, step by step, exactly how a normal school trip went catastrophically wrong. We'll be looking at the timeline, the environment, and the incredible supernatural escalation that ultimately claimed 2 young lives.
Okay, let's dive into this. At the center of our story today are 3 friends, Amin, Rohan, and Ayush. You know how it is on a school trip? They were just looking for a bit of excitement, a cool story to bring back home. But the real question we have to figure out today is how a simple midnight dare, which should have been a totally harmless prank, literally spiraled into an inescapable nightmare, one that ended in a completely tragic double fatality.
Section 1, The Midnight Escape. So it all started when the students' bus broke down super late at night. The teachers made the call to just stop at a nearby hotel until a mechanic could get there in the morning. But guys, this wasn't just any hotel. It was completely isolated, surrounded on absolutely all sides by towering trees and a really dense mountainous forest. It was basically a classic recipe for total isolation. Aman, Rohan, and Ayush were sharing a room, and looking out their window, they spot this lake sitting right in the middle of the dark forest. Now, they remembered a rumor from an older school trip where 2 students snuck out to a similar lake at night and basically came back as the most popular kids in school. Driven by that, our 3 friends hatched this incredibly dangerous plan: sneak out of the hotel, snap a few photos by the lake, and sneak back in before anyone even notices. Their goal was super simple, right? A quick photo op by the lake to boost their social status. An innocent, almost naive intention. But the reality was vastly different. They were stepping straight into a deeply isolated, freezing environment that was hiding some truly dark secrets they couldn't possibly comprehend. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it maps out their descent into total isolation. It happened so fast. The second the hotel guard falls asleep, they slip out. But that lake, which looked so close from their window, was deceptively far away. They end up trekking for like 30 to 60 minutes deep into these endless woods. It's getting freezing cold, they're shivering, and then comes the real turning point. They check their phones and realize they have absolutely zero signal. Panic instantly sets in. They make the logical choice to whip out their phone flashlights and try to turn back, but it was already way too late. Section 2, The First Possession. Out there in the pitch dark, the group gets separated. Aman and Ayush are walking slightly ahead, and they turn around to realize Rohan has completely vanished. Then they hear this terrifying sound of someone running through the silent forest. They don't want to leave their friend behind, so they follow the footsteps. After a few minutes, the footsteps just stop, and they hear something that absolutely chills them to the bone: the sound of dirt being dug up. They peek through the bushes and find Rohan, but guys, something is horribly wrong. Rohan is frantically digging a literal grave in the earth with his bare hands. When they call out, he turns around and his eyes are completely pitch black, like the eyeballs are just gone. Amin walks up and touches his shoulder, and Rohan violently screams, pushing Amin away with his terrifying, sudden, superhuman force. Let's walk through exactly how fast this supernatural force escalates. It is highly volatile. First, Rohan uses that superhuman strength to throw Amin. The very next second, Rohan collapses into violent seizures and passes out. Ayush rushes over to help him, but when Rohan wakes up, he just screams and points right at Amin. Ayush turns around to see Amin sitting completely silent, head bowed down. When Amin finally lifts his head, his eyes have turned pitch black too. The entity had literally just transferred from Rohan directly to Amin. Before Ayush or Rohan can even process it, Amin springs up and sprints deeper into the forest. Section 3, The Ruined House. Ayush and the now-recovered Rohan take off chasing their possessed friend through the darkness. Using only their phone flashlights, they stumble upon a totally chilling setting. Aman has run straight into an abandoned, decaying house. It's this absolute ruin that clearly hasn't seen a human being inside in years. It is incredibly desolate and deeply unsettling. Both Ayush and Rohan are paralyzed with fear. Every single instinct is screaming at them to run away. But they're loyal friends, so they actually step inside to try and save Aman. What they see inside completely defies logic. And it's the absolute climax of this whole nightmare. They find Amin totally unconscious, but he is floating, literally suspended in midair.
I mean, the sheer impossibility of that visual right there proves they are dealing with a massively powerful paranormal force. But Amon wasn't alone in there. An old woman was talking to his suspended body. Listen to this description. Black eyes, hanging skin, white hair, crawling like an insect down the stairs. When she spots the boys, she starts coming after them, and she's not walking. She is literally crawling down the stairs like a massive bug. The sheer terror of seeing that finally breaks the boys. They turn and run blindly for their lives. Section 4. Tragedy at the lake. So the boys are sprinting through the dark, completely disoriented and terrified. And this brilliantly illustrates the tragic irony of it all. Their frantic escape route unknowingly leads them straight into the exact same body of water they originally set out to find. Driven by pure panic, they stumble right over the edge and fall directly into the freezing lake. The water instantly becomes a death trap. They feel this incredibly powerful, unseen force physically dragging them beneath the surface. Ayush fights back violently and somehow, miraculously, breaks the surface. But in a moment of just utter helplessness, he has to watch as his friend Rohan is pulled down into the depths and drowns, right in front of his eyes. The trauma and exhaustion are just too much, and Ayush collapses unconscious on the shoreline. When Ayush finally opens his eyes, it's morning, and he's back in his hotel room. He runs outside to a completely devastating scene. The police are there, and on the ground are the bodies of his friends, Rohan and Amon, wrapped in white sheets. The official police report hastily writes the whole thing off as a double murder, but Ayush's reality? He knows exactly what happened in those woods. It wasn't a murder, it was a supernatural massacre, and the authorities got it completely wrong. Section 5, the vengeful origin. So, what does this all mean? Why did this even happen? To figure that out, we have to look at the actual history of the land. The local villagers actually provided the dark lore that pieces this whole tragedy together. Years ago, that terrifying old woman they saw, she was a real, living resident of the forest. She lived totally peacefully, secluded in her home, but some villagers from a nearby area wanted to steal her land. So, to drive her out, they abused her and ultimately brutally murdered her. And to hide the evidence, they dumped her body right into that exact same lake. So, what the boys stumbled into was a textbook vengeful spirit. The absolutely brutal nature of her death permanently tied her to the forest and the lake. That grotesque, insect-like manifestation, the violent possession of the boys, it was all just indiscriminate retribution. It's a very well-known fact among the locals. You absolutely do not go near that forest or lake at night. Her spirit is still actively roaming the area, seeking revenge. Which leaves us with this final, deeply chilling question. If Amin and Rohan had just known the dark, bloody history of the land surrounding their hotel, would they have ever stepped out of their room? A simple desire to be popular at school ended up costing them their lives and left Ayush as the sole bearer of this horrific truth. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. It is a pretty stark reminder that some boundaries, especially the ones drawn by local legends, are just never meant to be crossed. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next one.